Welcome to the Wellness Growth Show, where we dive into the strategies, systems, and stories behind building scalable wellness businesses. I'm your host, Scott Schumann, growth partner to wellness and health tech founders who are moving beyond one-to-one delivery and into organizations, employers, and institutions. Each week, I sit down with the people actually doing the work, founders and operators growing mission-driven platforms that create real impact and sustainable revenue. Whether you're pivoting from B2C, landing your first corporate wellness contract, or scaling into institutional partnerships, this show is here to meet you where you are with honest insights, tactical conversations, and zero fluff. Let's get into it.
Today, we're sitting down with David Jereb as part of Series 2. Thanks for joining us again, Dave. For those who missed your first episode, what is Move About Therapy and what's its mission?
Yeah, Move About Therapy is a pediatric occupational therapy business. So we're all about kids, and we're in it to work with kids. You know, we have this vision that one day all kids will have meaningful lives regardless of their differences. And our core thing is that we do it by supporting the people who support the kids. So we do have these great clinic spaces with ball pits and slides and 100 places to hang a swing. And so we can do great sensory motor work, get their body working, use play to support development. But we're actually bigger than that. Really, the key thing is that we support the people who support the kids. And so that's supporting families to help those kids outside of our sessions. It's also supporting our team because they're the ones helping the families. And actually, it's supporting our community. It's sharing knowledge on things like this, but also on social media and through webinars and courses and all sorts of things like that. And so we've got 3 clinics, Sydney, Central Coast and Newcastle, with several hundred clients and about 45 on our team now. So we're not small, been around for about 17 years. And both my wife, Kathy, and I are OTs. Actually, my sister was an OT too. So that's our story. That's Move About.
All right. So you introduced burning in as the opposite of burnout. Can you share what that concept means to you now after living it with your team for years?
Yeah, firstly, thanks for the last podcast. It was really enjoyable to get to talk through some of these concepts, and it's great now to talk further. Burning in is a concept I've been working on for a long time. The term, I'm a bit dirty. I have to give credit to a friend and colleague of mine, Rhiannon Crisp. She's an OT. She teaches a lot, and she said it on Instagram one day, and I'm like, that is what I've been talking about for years. That's the word. So I have to give her credit for the words. But are you okay if I go one step back and actually talk about what burnout is? Like, we act like we know what it is, but it's actually a real thing. You know, burnout is a disorder. It's a workplace stress disorder, right? Where people are depleted in terms of their energy. They're feeling this exhaustion. They've got this mental distance from their job. They start to get negative and cynical, and they're just not being very effective in what they do. So it's actually a real concept. It's a real disorder. And I don't want to minimize people that say I'm feeling burnout, but I do want to challenge those people, right? Because it is important, the language that we use. And so we can say these things and we sort of become what we say in many regards. Like, I often tell people, for the next minute, don't think about a white polar bear, you know, and you can't, right? That's all you can think about. And so if you talk about being burnout, then you're going to think about how burnout you are. And so sometimes we say burnout and we mean tired. We mean maybe even exhausted on that day. Maybe we feel just sort of, maybe we're heading towards burnout, or we're anxious, or we're worried. We need a break. Like, maybe you need a day off. Maybe you need a catch-up day on your paperwork. Maybe you need a holiday, right? So they're things, and then you come back and you're revived. You know, I just want to challenge that we go to these words that become our identity, and then they send us down that path. Instead of focusing, and that's why instead of focusing on reducing burnout, I like to focus on burning in. And so we'll talk about that. And I think I was thinking this morning, what's my problem with focusing on reducing burnout? And it really is about putting that white polar bear in our mind. But it's also kind of like, if a kid's experiencing bullying, we don't just say do some mindfulness coloring when you're not at school, right? Or you need to go for a few more runs because you're experiencing bullying. It's like, people would think that's so insensitive. And I think it's the same thing. Like, if you're truly burnt out, we need to do something about that situation to improve it. But it may not be these black or white things that people go to. So people tend to be black and white, and there's 2 ways they go. It's the workplace's fault or it's my fault. And so they're like, my workplace is toxic. And it's like, well, that's a problem. You better get out of it, right? Because if it's toxic, that's pretty complete. It's sort of without redemption in some regards. And it's usually not completely without redemption. Particularly in allied health, there's well-meaning people who are themselves in survival mode. So we'll talk about how we can help those situations. The other thing they go to is I'm not good enough. I'm not cut out for NDIS work. I'm not cut out for this kind of thing. I'll never be that person. And those sort of all or nothing. So that was a horrible session is what I hear people say. Well, it probably wasn't all horrible. Let's pick that apart a little bit. So, in terms of burnout, are we working harder? And sorry, I still haven't got to burning in, and I promise I will, Scott. But are we working harder than when I was coming through as a new grad? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say physically we're not working harder. Actually, I was seeing more clients than my team have ever seen. And they work extremely hard, my team, but I was. But there's something different, right? And I don't think it's the physical work is not harder. I don't think we're doing even more hours on that work, but it is the mental load is taking a toll. That cognitive bandwidth is getting stretched by the alerts on our phone, the alerts on our emails, the constant flooding of information, the always on, never off, and on top of economy and bills and, the perfectionism we have these days. And there are things around compassion fatigue where we give our all, although I do think there are things we can do as well where, if I go in with half a cup, if you say that in a session and the mum's got a quarter of a cup and the kid's got a third of a cup, we often all leave with a full cup if I do my job right, which is keep my boundaries and start with connection. So that was a long way around saying, don't be too quick to jump to labeling yourself burnout, but you can see the signs. You're probably right that there's signs of burnout is on its way if you don't do something about it. And what you do is burn in, right? And so that's what you need to do. You need to start to ignite passion, meaning, really make sure you're clear on your vision and values. Why did you get into this? What difference do you want to make? What's important to you? And am I making an impact? For me, they're the big things that can really get us through any struggle. Our life is pretty good in Australia. And actually, if I was an OT in the US where you are, I think my life would be pretty good too on a world scale. And even compared to 20 or 30 years ago, we're doing pretty well if we can just keep focused. Last thing around this meaning piece that I always like to bring up is Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. He's sitting in a concentration camp when he discovers he who has a why can bear almost any how. And I think having that vision, knowing why we got into it and making sure you can be in the shittiest, toxicest job. And if you are aligned with your values, you can survive that setting and not burn out. In allied health, you probably have a lot of choice as well at the moment. But that's for me. Really igniting your passion, your meaning, your vision, your values, and just making sure that you're heading towards making an impact in the world.
Okay. So you've developed a repeatable culture framework built around supported self-development. Can you walk us through its key pillars?
Yeah, and I talked a lot about that in our first episode. So I sort of went away going, did I give too much detail there? I was quite thorough in that one. Basically, the gist is I sort of almost started on this, right? I said people either want to blame the workplace is toxic, or they blame themselves. And actually, people are often really insensitive to people. When people say, I'm feeling a bit burnt out, people often start with the you justs, right? They go, you just got to exercise more. You just got to do some mindfulness stuff, coloring, meditation. And you just really, to me, minimizes the problem, which is a lot more complex than that. It also is a way of saying, you're making me anxious, go away. I don't want to hear it. I feel like it's I get really annoyed when people start in with the adjust, because it's more than adjust. It's quite complex. The supported self-development framework that I created has this S framework of self, supports, and structures. And so I've talked about self. It's not just about you, but there are aspects of you, right? So you want to know what your vision and values are. You want to be aware of your self-care needs, which is probably the only thing I ever hear people talking about with burnout. So you can find that info and it's important. But know your vision and values is key. And then self-awareness to know, what am I good at? What do I struggle with? So what do I need help with? And it's rarely that you're not good at any of it. And we can talk about that later if you want to talk about how in our team we start to help people get better self-awareness. And often they have these all or nothing statements and they realize, actually, I'm 70% on track with that if you can have the right metrics. So self is vision and values, self-care and self-awareness. Supports, that is the workplace, that is the team. And so that's what professional supports do you have? Is the environment like? So is the physical and sensory environment conducive to your cognitive bandwidth, or is it loud and crazy and people are interrupting you and you're expected to drop everything and do things, and that you've got alerts on all your own personal responsibility around what alerts you turn on and off on your phone and your computer and all those sort of things. All of that depletes your cognitive bandwidth and fatigues you. And I do think admin's a bigger killer than any client facing piece in the work that I do. I don't want to speak for
I've
every
heard that though.
domain, but yeah, I think so. And then social connection is really key too. So that could be in the workplace or outside the workplace. So supports is professional supports, social connection, and that physical sensory environment. And then structures are just, what are those cheat sheets? What are those systems and structures? Can you do structured reasoning? Do you have templates for reports? Do you have templates for assessment and for reviewing clients and for thinking through challenging sessions? And then just being able to, I love to record sessions and reflect. So have that sort of skilled observation is a key. If you can get someone to support you to get your clinical eye in, that's really helpful. And strategic practice is just getting on the tools and doing it and reflecting well. You can speed that up. So self-support structures, it's not just about you if you're feeling fatigued and heading to burnout. And it's probably not just about the workplace, but those things have massive impact, as well as just having some ways to make life easier. And AI is making it easier and easier and easier to come up with systems and structures and frameworks to reduce that admin too.
Can you share how this framework shows up like in day-to-day in terms of like leadership?
Yeah. Yep. So look, I think it is important to understand people are on a learning curve. And so there's a thing called the conscious competence matrix. And I talk about it as the new role roller coaster, right? So knowing people are on a journey in that role that they're in. I used to call it the early career roller coaster, but then I see it happening again as people jump into the next jump, the next leadership framework. It's somewhat similar to the S curve that you see in some sorts of thinking. But so the new role roller coaster is, you got that unconscious competence. It's new and exciting. And you're like, oh yeah, I don't know what I don't know. So I'm so excited to learn. And then you realize, oh my God, there's so much I don't know, right? So that's conscious incompetence. You're like, so much I don't know. I feel really crappy. Stacks of people burn out or drop out of jobs at that stage. They feel I'm not good enough. I'll never get it. Yeah, that's terrible. And then you get conscious competence, which you think, oh, that should feel good because now I know what I need to do, right? So I know what I need to do. Problem is, at that stage, you still need to think a lot about it. So it's still quite fatiguing. And I've seen a lot of people drop out at that stage too, because they sort of give themselves, oh, when it's new and I don't know, it makes sense that I'd be tired at that stage. But once I know it, it should start feeling easier, right? And that's the problem. They drop out at that stage and they're just that far away, right? You need to get to unconscious competence where you can do a lot of your job without thinking. Things get automatic. I found with my team, there was this weird phenomenon where they'd get really stressed around 18 to 20 clients and then they'd look great a month after they were on 23, 24, whatever full was for their load. I'm like, why do they look better with 5 more clients? And it's because there's no longer any new, right? They were getting new clients every couple of weeks and it's all novelty. You got to think about those things. There's no autopilot for those things. By the time they're full, they've got kids that they're in a groove with. They're in a groove with the relationship. They're in a groove with a treatment plan. I teach them you do not need a new treatment plan every week. The kids coming in wanting to do what you did last week, you just need to grade it to the level that they're up to now. And so they stop having to think as much and it starts to get easier. The other thing was there was bad patterns because when they had a small caseload, instead of going into sessions and shadowing and learning, they were writing 30-minute treatment notes that were no longer sustainable when you got over 20 clients. So now we started putting in structures saying, at this level, your note should be this long, at this level that, you've got this much time to do it, and start to get them to where it's efficient and build those good habits from early on. But so how we put this framework in, it really is, there's the development for them and we're helping them have reflective tools to be able to reflect on where they're up to. We're also putting in supervision and support structures. We've got one-to-one supervision every week. We've got group-based supervision every week for everyone on our team. And that group-based is based on their level. So there's 4 or 5 different groups that we have across our 3 clinics that meet on Zoom. And so the learning is at the just right level. We've got templates and tools and systems and structures to help them. And that's probably been the game changer. Since COVID, we're a whole different practice because we had less clients. We had to find meaningful work for our team. And what we did was we got Loom and we got on track and we just started capturing systems so that we are consistent. We know what we're doing. We don't have to think. We just go to the system and it tells us what to do. And then we can just use our thinking on, we can use our cognitive energy for clinical reasoning and ideation and the fun stuff and not be thinking, where do I put this form in and where should I start with this assessment? Like, we just want to take the thinking part out of the stuff that you don't need to think about every time. If it's the same every time, let's just have that system and capture it. So that's the structures. We've got a lot of supervision and mentoring support in the supports. We also talk about cognitive bandwidth a lot, and we do check-ins with our team to make sure individual officers are chatting with each other about what are the signs, what are their agreed rules around when you can interrupt someone. If I've got headphones on, that's a send me a chat, Google Chat, don't talk to me. If I'm if I'm at a report, doing a report, don't interrupt me. But if I go to the toilet, you can talk to me in that in between when I'm in a transition, But so we've got Google Chat is how we'll deal with things, even if you're sitting next to someone.
Okay.
The courtesy is to chat them rather than interrupt them, because that shifting focus depletes cognitive energy. So that environment's important. In terms of self-reflection, we help them create desire statements where they think about their 5-year plan. We help them set goals that are small goals and think about what the next action is for those. In terms of reflecting on their abilities, we have a whole bunch of competencies for them as OTs, as well as specifically for assessments, where they can give themselves these zones of, I don't feel competent, I feel competent. So that's a red. I feel competent is a yellow. I feel excellent is a green. And then this is my zone of genius has a column, and I can give that a tick. And that's this sort of blue. I need like a platinum or something for that. But so it's really, and the goal is not to be, I'm the expert at everything, I'm in my zone of genius for everything. The goal is to just get yellow at everything. You just need to be competent at everything, and then find the things you're passionate about to be green, and then just a couple of things that you can be in that zone of genius with. And we have those conversations with people, and it makes a big difference for people. They're like, I can't do assessments. I'm not independent with assessments. And it's like, all right, well, let's look at it. Actually, I can do 75% of the assessment process. It's just these last couple of things I need to focus on. Really breaking that down is super helpful.
Okay. So how do you think clinic owners can start embedding this into their own workplaces, especially like thinking just like if they're small or just getting started?
Yeah, so I think practice what you preach. So if mentoring is important, you need to start doing it and you need to start getting it. So I'm a firm believer that I get frustrated with allied health owners sometimes. If you set up a bakery, you're probably going to drop $100,000 setting up the physical business and getting the stock. And there's not many businesses that you can set up in your back garage with, like a low cost, which you can with allied health. But I don't think you should. Like, I think if you're going to go into business, you should take that responsibility on board, and you should invest in your business. And that's investing in yourself, getting mentoring, getting coaching, getting support. I think that's investing in your people, making sure that you've got time. And I don't want to judge people, because a lot of people really struggle with business as owners. But if you're having to treat a full caseload to pay salary, that's a problem. You need some support to get through that, because you're not supporting them. You're not living your values. You're not moving towards your vision. If that's the case, probably a step even before that, though, is really simple. Connection is the key. Connection is the key in therapy. It sets the brain up to be regulated for learning and for engaging. But if we're talking about burnout, which is a stress disorder, the best way to calm stress is oxytocin, which calms the amygdala and says you're not needed here. And the best way to get oxytocin is through warm, caring relationships. So we think about oxytocin in terms of mums and bubs, but you can get oxytocin through play and fun relationships. You can get it with your dog. When you're playing with your dog, you're probably both experiencing oxytocin. So start to find those little moments to spark joy and connection, and giving people that present, connected time. That's the game changer. That's where you need to start. That's the most important thing for a culture, is relationship. The biggest myth in business is that phrase, it's just business. It's never just business. Even in the most widgety business in the world, it's all about relationships, relationships with suppliers, relationships with your people, relationships with your customers. It doesn't matter how good your product is or your service is. If you can't connect, then you're not going to succeed. And a lot of allied health professionals get that with clients and they miss that with each other because they're under stress and they're so focused and they give their all and they're not doing the things to make sure that they're supported themselves and on track.
Yeah, I can imagine, just starting off as a new business owner, you're wearing so many hats already, right? And then it's like you're trying to do the job, but then there's all these other things in the business that you need to do, and you're getting pulled every different direction. And then if you're not making time for yourself, investing in yourself to like support, so that ultimately you can support your team. Okay, so I would love to know, like thinking more back at the business side, how has this approach impacted your retention, performance, or even growth inside of Move About?
I mean, it's the whole core of it. It's and the fact that we do extend support the people who support the kids to the community, I think gets our message out. But how we connect and relate to our team, a lot of our team members have come from other team members and or from people who know people who work from us. So that's an impact.
That's flattering. Yeah, that's
we managed to hire 15 people in 15 months without a job ad where no one else could find therapists. No one else could find therapists. And there was a time when I lost a therapist because she moved away to support her partner's dad who was unwell. And she was traveling an hour and a half each way for 3 months before she said, I just can't do it anymore. And I understood. She gave me 10 weeks and I could not find someone that I really thought was a good cultural fit. So that's the first thing. Wait it out. Do not desperation hire. A bad cultural fit is a big problem. But at that stage, I was like, I never want a place to seek out again. I want to be the go-to place. I just want to have the best culture and I want to get our message out and I want to give freely. We're going to get other people to head towards our vision, even if they never work for me, because that's my goal. My goal is that one day all kids, regardless of their differences, can have meaningful lives and be valued by the communities. And so we're just going to give. And you know what? That attracted and people found us. The other piece that this does, this relationship piece, Scott, is an honest conversations along the way. They're not your psychologist. Don't tell them every bad thing that happens, but you can tell them the things you're working through. You can tell them that you admit when you don't get it right. And what I find, and talk about, you might leave one day. Here's a good way that you could leave. Let us know. So people mostly don't leave us for other jobs. They leave us because they're moving away. They move us because they're moving overseas or interstate. Some people take a break for maternity leave, but now that we have a maternity leave policy or a parental leave policy, they tend to come back as well. But what I find is if someone gets hit up by a recruiter or if someone's husband stumbles across a job ad and passes it to them, they come and talk to us before they say yes, before they take that thing. They give us a chance to work it out. Or if they're feeling stressed out in their job or they're not feeling good about something, they come and talk to us. And I would say every one of my 45 team members would reach out to me, but probably reach out to their clinical manager first. And so they give us the opportunity to repair and to not lose people. And the biggest cost in business for allied health, I'm certain, is replacing a full-time team member that is really good. And so that's a financial cost. In Australia, I would put that at probably $50,000 to $100,000. But even worse, it's an emotional cost. Losing people you care about is hard. When people leave for another job, everyone else on your team is thinking, I thought this was a good job. Maybe it's not. Maybe I should think about leaving. If you can stop people leaving for other jobs and have people leaving say, I'm really sad about leaving. I wish I could take Move About with me to this place that I'm moving to for my family. Then you lose people and it helps reinforce how good you are as a workplace. Relationship is everything. Connection is everything. So, and it's also free. Scott, apart from the time it takes, really allocating time to be present and to be connected costs you nothing. And it's the most important thing.
So for leaders wanting to prioritize the culture, it sounds like you're saying like just spend time with your team and give to them. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's the most important. I mean, there's obviously, we've been around for 17 years and we've been working hard on systems and processes since COVID. So that's 5-6 years. And so they make a massive difference. If you can, there's a lot of things. There's not a quick fix. But
Right.
you just start at something and chip away. Start with connection, and then start to build out frameworks to make life easier. Just work a little bit. Spend an hour a week on your Google Drive trying to organize it a little bit so that your templates are easy to find for reports or for this or for that. I love the book Clockwork is like my Bible by Mike
Okay.
Michalowicz. During COVID, I read it in a day, and then I joined their Run Like Clockwork program. And that was life-changing for our business to get structures and systems and clarity and get people really in their zone of genius as much, and to delegate. That's my Bible for helping me delegate as well and to trust what was happening. So if you can start to maybe an hour a week to capture systems, what I would say even better practice though is if you capture, don't create. So people think, oh, I need to sit down and make a policy and procedures manual. No, just go, all right, I'm doing something. What am I doing? I'll write it down as I do it. Oh, I'm doing it on the screen. Take a Loom video of me doing it. That's our system. And the one last thing, the most important thing that is in capturing systems, done is better than perfect, right? The rule in our clinic is the only thing that is perfect is how it's labeled on the drive file, right? It's year, month, day, name of the thing, right? That's the only thing that's perfect. Do not put a title slide. Do not add music. Do not edit. Just single take. Here's what it was. I got that wrong. Actually, it's here. If you did that, that's probably what someone else is going to do, right? And it has to be so easy to do so that then someone says, oh, you left out this bit. You say, thanks for noticing. Can you just re-record it and put that bit in? Right? If it's that easy, like I used to write these policies and procedures manuals and they were so pristine. And it's like, don't you dare tell me I have to edit anything on it, right? It sits on the bookshelf, gets dusty. No one wants to read it. And you're never going to edit it because it costs so much work. It was so hard to do. It needs to be like, I don't care if you redo it, just redo it. The key thing is that we know what we're doing and it's just easy that we don't have to think about dumb stuff.
Yeah, and I think Loom allows you now, you can go cut another video or cut out that missing part and then you can just put them together kind of thing. It's like,
you can, yeah.
They're making it easier and easier. And I love that you touched on the title because it's like, you've got an SOP, you've got some kind of system, right? That's telling you how to do something. So it's like, make sure you call it what it is. Like, what does it solve? Like, what are you going to learn in this video? So that way people can easily access it later. Okay. So what's one thing you wish more clinic leaders understood about burnout prevention or even just burning in for building sustainable teams?
Oh, there's so many things, but I mean, I think connection is the key. Connection and relationships and having people that can speak openly to you about things is really the big key. And then being creative with how you can get people to have little meaningful leadership opportunities. Private practice, the sort of one pathway. You're a newbie, you're an intermediate, you're a team leader, you're a manager, you're an owner, right? And if someone's ahead of you, you got to wait your turn or you got to go somewhere else. And in the past, we lost people because they just outgrew a practice that had two owners as bosses. You can't like have, 5 team leaders and 2 non-team. Like that doesn't work like that. But what we found was people could start to grow business in ways that were just little bits of responsibility. New grads can be in charge of our healthy eating, healthy snacks program, which is just we spend $50 a week in each clinic to buy healthy snacks because we eat a lot of snacks. And so that just helps. We have a bit of a buddy system. We call them onboarding partners. And so someone with a year experience is a great onboarding partner because they have no clinical, they're not meant to talk clinical. They're just the person you go to when you say, where are staples? How do I refill the bubbles? Or where do I put my timesheet? Stuff that's non-clinical that you don't want to bug your manager with. We have some set times in the first 6 months with your onboarding partner, your buddy, and that person can have that little bit of leadership without having to be a clinical mentor. Finding those little pieces. People run groups, people run our social media, people run our internal professional development training of scheduling it. They may not actually run the session. Find little bits where they can have autonomy and leadership and creativity and get them to start to share. Like if they can give you some ideas to grow your business in alignment with your values, that was the biggest thing for me was when people started to grow my business in ways that I never would have. We've never looked back.
It's like listening to that feedback that things, it's like a new eyes on the business and through their experience or their whatever that's going on and being able to feel good about sharing that and know that.
Yeah, absolutely. And for some reason that made me think of week 3 of every quarter for us is Y week. So we actually put on our team meetings, this is why week. Think about something that feels clunky or not working and just ask why we're doing it. What would happen if we just stopped doing it? Or is there a better way to do it? That's a really nice thing to implement as
Oh,
well.
that's
Just,
huge.
yeah, it's
Okay,
cool.
yeah. Dude, this has been great. Tell us where we can learn more about you and how people can reach out if they want to go deeper.
Yeah, so if people are looking for therapy for kids, we're in Sydney, Central Coast and Newcastle. Moveabout.com is our website. For training, mentoring courses, it's moveabout.com.au/courses. And we do have one-to-one mentoring around the clinical, particularly for OTs, but sometimes other allied health professionals find that valuable. I do business coaching, obviously, beyond that as well. We have an immersion program where people can come spend a week with us and learn the inner and outs of our client journey and our processes, and we send them off with a bunch of packets to be able to follow through. And I also have the OT Sanctuary, which is a community for allied health professionals. It's called the OT Sanctuary because it's led by OTs, but we do have other health professionals that are there. It's focused on pediatrics, where we meet a couple of times a week, have a deep dive on a case, have some Q&A time and group supervision. We also do a masterclass each month. That's really cool. You can find me on LinkedIn, Dave Jereb, or Moveabout, and I'm on Instagram as well, Dave Jereb_O.
Excellent. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.